Hi there, we're going to talk just briefly about how to do inline graphics in InDesign and also what is called anchored objects. The purpose of this is to take a graphic like you see here on my screen. It's a little screenshot that I want to incorporate into this technical document on my right hand of my screen. So what I want to do is I want to take this screenshot and I want to bring it over here where it talks about creating a new document. I want to put that screenshot in there and I want it to be in line with the text. That way when the text is edited and the text moves up or down or to a different page, the graphic actually stays with it. So it's not just a matter of taking the selection tool, taking this framed graphic, and we basically move it over here on top, and then we ask it to do like a text wrap. So let me come over here and I'll bring up my typography workspace and I'll find text wrap and we'll pick over here jump object. That's fine, but the problem is this text would be edited, like we add text or take away from this text here, the graphic doesn't move. I mean, the text wraps around it, but the graphic itself doesn't move. And I want it to link to like a specific paragraph and move with it in line. So let me undo those couple things here. And we'll put the graphic back on the pasteboard here. So what I'm going to do, this is really easy. I just take this graphic and I'm going to right mouse click and I'm going to cut it from here. And the secret is to go over here and get the text tool and double click in the frame where you want the inline graphic. And I'm just going to hit a return. And I'm going to paste from the keyboard Control V on a Windows machine or Command key V on a Mac and paste that in. Because I had the blinking cursor there, it incorporates or puts the graphic in line with the text. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my black selection tool here. I'm going to click on this graphic I pasted in there and I'm going to go over to text wrap and I'm still going to turn on jump, but I'm going to bring it down and you can see it's pushing the text down. Now what I can do here, this is actually being treated kind of like a fake piece of text. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to double click after it and I have my blinking cursor, which is really kind of hard to see, on the right edge of this graphic, and I'm going to bring it back and I'm going to highlight this piece of artwork in here. Now I'm highlighting it almost like it's a piece of text, and then I'm going to ask InDesign to center it like it would a piece of text. So I'm going to go up to my control panel, I'm going to click on paragraph, and I'm going to align this to the center. There we go. So basically it treats this inline graphic almost like a piece of text. So now if I come up in the paragraph previous to it, and let's say I cut that text away from there, you see the graphic automatically moves up into position. Let me put the text back in there. Let me paste it back in there. And so again, the graphic moves down. So if I hit some returns here after the word front, we can see the graphic continues to remain in line with that text. So if you have some information you want to keep, you can just go ahead and make it an inline graphic in this method. Now let me show you another method. I'm going to undo a few steps here and I'm going to bring my graphic back on my desktop, and here what we can do is I'm going to take this object and let's say I want to shrink it down. I'm going to go Shift Control or Shift Command, and I just want to use it kind of as a little sidebar item in my document. So I'm going to bring it over here in my little sidebar area, and what I want to do is I want to link or anchor this graphic or this frame, it can be text or it can be graphics, to this paragraph where it says to create a new document. And in CS55 they made this beautiful because all I have to do is come over on the frame and there's a little blue square up here on the top. It says drag into the text to anchor the object. Shift drag to make it an inline object, and Option drag to open up the dialog box. So really, in a nutshell, all I've got to do is press on this little blue square and put it right next to the T here in this text. Now I'm going to zoom up on this so you can see a little bit better, and you can see the anchor line going down from this paragraph down to the corner of this actual linked frame. So it's anchored to that frame. This little Y symbol with a couple horizontal lines through it is the symbol that indicates this is an anchored object. So now if I click after front here and hit a couple returns, you can see that it's anchored to that text and it moves up and down in the sidebar. So it doesn't even have to be inside or in the frame itself. It can be anchored on the outside. And then if you want to set up some options for this particular item, you can switch over to the selection tool, click on the anchored object, and go under the object menu to anchored object to options. And what this is going to do, it's going to open up a dialog box here, and I'll move it over to the side. And it shows you down in here that the reference point for this anchored object is here on the proxy. You can see it's in the lower right. So if I click this to the upper right, let's see how it shifts my graphic. Let me turn on preview here. So let me bring it back the way it was before. So it's anchored to the bottom, and now I'm going to anchor it to the upper right. So now that graphic shifts down to that proxy point. So let's say we want to keep it there, and what we can do is we have the measurements here of its X and Y offset. I could actually hit these numbers and move it on the X-axis left and right from here. I can do the up and down from the Y relative specs here. I can do all that. But the nice thing is I don't necessarily have to do this math or tap on these things. I can actually just come over here and say I want it anchored like this or like this. So I manually can come in here and just position it where I want to relative to that text. So there's really, in the latest version of InDesign, it's really a piece of cake just to take a frame and anchor it to a specific paragraph. Let me fit in window here again, and just for instance, if I draw out a little text frame here, and let's say this is some text tip information, I'll paste some placeholder text inside of this, and I'll click. You see this text frame still has this anchor, so I can drag it right over here, anchor it right to this word enter, and now as I move through these things, that information moves up and down. So let me put it in front of after the word front so you can see both move at the same time. So it's really easy to do. Very, very easy. And the reason I'm seeing these anchor lines here is because on my machine I have the option turned on to view, extras, and show text threads. So if you want to see those anchor lines, you just go into view, extras, show text threads like you would for a regular text frame, and you can see the anchors here. Again, if you want to anchor it to a different place or do some other options, you can click on the actual frame that you've anchored to, or it's an inline. You can go under Object to Anchored Object and click Options. And you'll notice also there's one more little item right over here. It says Relative to Spine. When I click on this, if this text were to wrap around to the next page, it would position the anchored objects relative to the spine. So this looks like it's positioned them on the outside, on the outside. Let me see if I can type enough text in here, or hit enough returns to force it over to the next page, and let's see how it positions itself. So let me go ahead and do a couple of housekeeping tasks here. Let me remove this because it's not anchored, and I'll come back over to this paragraph, and I'm just going to hit some returns. So we're watching it go down on the left page, and now it should wrap over to the next page. And you'll notice the graphic I told it to align to the spine is actually over here now on the opposite side. This object here, if I select it and I go to Object, Anchored Object Options, I didn't tell it to be relative to the spine. So if I tell it to be relative to the spine, it always goes in the relative position where it was on the other page. That is, in this case, on the outsides. So as this text flows, it knows enough to put it relative to the spine where it was positioned in the first place. So let me remove some of these returns and we'll see this come back, and we'll see our little anchored objects come right over on this side relative to the spine. So they're really easy to do. They're fantastically easy. Again, if you want to do an inline, you can take an item and I can cut it. I can click inside where I want to put it and anchor it to a specific piece of text. We'll say after the word period document here, and I'll paste it. Now it is an inline graphic, and I can move it down and go to text wrap. And normally what I do is I use the jump feature because I don't want text wrapping on both sides of it. And I can move this, now this graphic, basically up and down. Again, if I want to select it, I have to highlight it with the text tool, and I can go up to my control panel and align it to the center. If I want to move it down, I'm going to click in front of it and get that big blinking cursor, and I'll just hit returns. So again, it's treating it just like it would a paragraph. And again, to do the anchored objects basically on the outside of the frame, I'm just going to click, I'm going to cut this, I'm going to paste it over on the side here. And again, I just take that little blue square indicator, I'm going to drag it right over here, anchor it to this T and to create, and it's anchored there. Let me undo that, Control Z or Command Z. And look at the other option here I didn't use before. It says Shift Drag to make it an inline. So that's what I'll do this. I'll hold the Shift key down, drag it over here after Documents, let up. You instantly see it's anchored in there, and then you can turn on the text wrap up and down, manually drag it up and down and position it, and you're on your way. So there's just a little bit about what are called inline graphics and also anchored objects outside the frame. Remember, they don't have to be a graphic frame. It can be a graphic frame, a text frame. And it's great for manuals and catalogs where you want to keep a specific textual information like a hint or a warning with a piece of text in the body of the document, or a photograph or some design or graphic that you want to associate with some text and have that move as you build your document. Have a great day.